Coming up in just seconds on Action 7 News Live at 5, honoring the lives lost in El Paso, how a community in New Mexico is coming together tonight for a vigil.
Plus, limiting gun access in Albuquerque, what some city lawmakers want to see happen after the tragedies in El Paso and Dayton.
Coverage you can count on. KOAT Action 7 News at 5 starts right now.
31 people dead after 2 mass shootings. In El Paso, the death toll is now at 22 after 2 more victims died in the hospital.
Here's what we know tonight. All bodies have been removed from the Walmart where police say Patrick Crusius opened fire. Police say most of the victims were inside that store. Now, prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty against the suspect, something President Trump agrees with.
Today, I'm also directing the Department of Justice to propose legislation ensuring that those who commit hate crimes and mass murders face the death penalty.
El Paso's mayor says the president is planning to visit Wednesday. Police say the suspect did not know anyone in El Paso. Detectives say Crusius posted a manifesto with racist, anti-immigrant writings right before the shootings.
And we've had crews covering the shooting in El Paso since the news broke. We also have reporters in Las Cruces, Albuquerque, and Santa Fe following how city leaders and families there are responding to the tragedy.
We begin with anchor Shelby Cashman.
She is live in El Paso right now with how the community is coming together. Shelby.
Good evening, Christine. We are here at that Walmart where it all unfolded, and things obviously look a little bit different. Now, I want to show you guys what the community is doing here at the scene. Step out of the way. Just look at this. An unbelievable amount of candles, flowers, messages to the victims and to the community. This has just been building all day long. A really steady stream of people coming in, doing what they can to pay their respects here at the Walmart. I also want to show you another thing that the community is doing. Take a look at this. This was the scene earlier at a blood donation center set up at one of these school district offices. Organizers tell me there were actually people lined up at 7 a.m. and they didn't even open their doors until 9. By noon, there was lines around the door. They were fully booked for the day. There was a 6-hour wait, and then they were at full capacity. They already had appointments booked through the end of the entire week.
We are one of the most giving and most welcoming communities. And while we simultaneously grieve, we continue to serve.
And I'm told that blood that people were giving has been a huge help to local hospitals, going directly to help those victims who are still in the hospital and injured from this shooting. Now, Vitalan is asking people to schedule appointments now because they've had such a wonderful influx of people, but they want you to schedule appointments. Like I said, they're booked through the end of this week, but you can book your appointments and schedule them next week because that need for blood doesn't go away. There's still a shortage nationally. That woman you heard from too, we're going to introduce you to her. She's actually a member of the Texas Board of Education. She's doing something pretty incredible on this Friday morning to help her community, and we're going to tell you about that coming up at 6. For now, live in El Paso, Shelby Cashman, KOAT Action 7 News.
And this tragedy sadly has reached our state capital as a Santa Fe family grieves the loss of their aunt and sister. Action 7 News reporter Justin Matthews shows us the emotional interview you'll see only on 7.
She was smart. She was 86, but you couldn't tell.
I hope that maybe someone next to her held her hand, or that she wasn't afraid.
They're grieving the loss of their aunt and sister, Angie Inglesby. Angie was the oldest of 10 kids and has 21 grandchildren.
Nobody should go through what this family's going through.
Angie is one of the people being remembered who lost their lives shopping at Walmart in El Paso Saturday morning. The family says Angie had been on the phone with one of her daughters minutes before the shooting. Investigators confirmed to the family that Angie was one of the victims around 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon.
We have no room for racism.
We just never thought, you see it on TV, I never thought I would dream to see it happen to my family. It's been devastating.
The news has already impacted their daily lives.
Today alone, we were shopping for our daughter, and it was anxiety being at the mall. Still thinking, what if it happened here? It was a lot of anxiety. And we shouldn't live like that.
I just feel bad because she's 86 years old and she should have been dead with natural causes,
right.
And instead,
this tragedy.
This is a senseless death.
Angie graduated high school and got married in Santa Fe before she moved. The family tells us she has always been a big Dallas Cowboys fan. They also say they plan to head to El Paso soon to help with funeral arrangements.
Well, the shooting in El Paso was the first one over the weekend.
Only 13 hours after that, another mass shooting in Dayton, Ohio with 9 dead. Here's ABC's Romina Puga.
Today, 2 cities in mourning and communities craving change. At an overnight vigil in Dayton, mourners demanding action from the state's government. In El Paso, even medical professionals visibly moved as they report that 2 of the injured victims passed away.
Unfortunately, these wounds have been devastating and major.
78-year-old Juan Velasquez is one of the recently deceased. His son telling ABC News he's devastated, and like many in the Hispanic community, he's scared for his life.
We're afraid to go out to the street because we feel like we're being hunted. I mean, because our color, our skin color.
It all started Saturday morning when 21-year-old Patrick Crusius opened fire in a packed Walmart, killing at least 22 and injuring dozens. Authorities suspect that El Paso's ethnic makeup and proximity to the Mexican border may have played a role in the shooter's choice of location. He's now charged with capital murder, but federal authorities say more charges could be coming, including domestic terrorism. The shooter in Dayton began his killing spree early Sunday morning. 24-year-old Connor Betts opened fire in the downtown district, killing 9 people, including his sister, and injuring more than 30. Officials still searching for a motive.
We have a lot of evidence still to go through.
The president addressing the nation today, condemning white nationalism.
In one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. Hate has no place in America.
In El Paso, Romina Puga, ABC News.
In the wake of the recent mass shootings, Albuquerque City Council members are now looking at new legislation to prevent one from happening here. Action 7 News reporter Shelley Leggett is at their meeting that just started.
Right now, City Council members are listening to an introduction to a piece of legislation that would identify red flags. City Councilor Isaac Benton is the author of this bill. He says because one of these mass shootings happened in a neighboring city, it's time Albuquerque took action. It's a resolution to enact laws of extreme risk or red flags that would address people who are known to have disorders of some sort or are exhibiting behavior that would indicate they should not have a gun.
All sorts of indications. There could be social media postings. They could be threats or behavior that seems to possibly be violent, but that the person has not been arrested for it or anything.
The legislation would allow law enforcement or people in the same home as that person to go to a state district court and ask that their firearm be temporarily taken away. The councilors are just hearing the introduction to the bill. They hope to vote on it in 2 weeks. In Albuquerque, Shelley Leggett, KOAT Action 7 News.
We'll check back in with Shelley at 6 for more on what happened in today's City Council meeting.
Las Cruces is showing its support for its sister city. The mayor and city councilors are holding a vigil at the Plaza de Las Cruces. It starts at 8. We will be there, and we'll show it to you tonight at 10. Well, adults aren't the only ones attending vigils. Youth baseball teams in El Paso gathered last night to remember the victims. One of the teams was at the Walmart during the shooting.
I think right now we're still very shocked and in awe. This didn't just affect our baseball family, but the city as a whole. This has never happened.
2 of the moms of the players were shot. They are still in the hospital.
We spoke with Democratic presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke after this shooting, and he told us he is proud of his city.
We will not be defined by this act of hatred and racism and violence. We're going to be defined by the way in which we overcome this and show the example to the rest of the country that we can be safe, we can be secure, we can be strong, we can be successful when we treat one another with dignity and respect.
O'Rourke went on to say President Trump has incited the racism and violence. 14 of the victims in this shooting were from Mexico, and of those, 8 were killed. One Mexican man described how he hid behind the cash registers at the Walmart.
Como estamos acostumbrados aquí que escuchamos disparos y vienen y matan a alguien y pues se van, ¿verdad? Y dejan a las demás personas. Ahí en Estados Unidos pues sí fue diferente porque dije, o es un secuestro a la tienda, o vienen a robarla, o alguien, o sea, es una matanza de las que hemos escuchado hablar mucho allá en Estados Unidos.
That Walmart is about 5 miles from the U.S.-Mexico border. Mexico's president says he is planning to make a legal complaint against the suspect. Border checkpoints around El Paso and New Mexico are now back open. They have been closed due to staffing shortages. It's not clear if the announcement today has anything to do with Saturday's shooting. Border Patrol uses the checkpoints to monitor human or drug smuggling.
New Zealand and Australia's prime ministers condemned our mass shootings.
I think as an international community, we have to also be united against acts of hatred, violence and terrorism.
Jacinda Ardern talked about the mosque attacks in her country and said she remembered the unity and support after that. Australia's prime minister said the shootings highlight the need to remain vigilant against any forms of extremism. A San Antonio hospital is sending 3 service dogs and their handlers to El Paso. They'll be there to comfort first responders and the hospital staff in the area over the next several days. The handlers say they are trained for people experiencing grief, stress, and trauma.
We are following these shootings very closely. We'll have the latest tonight on ABC World News Tonight. David Muir is anchoring from El Paso, and we'll have more on Action 7 News Live at 6. For when we're not on air, visit our KOAT website.
Another hot one outside in Albuquerque today. Here's a live look from our Presbyterian Action Cam. You can see just a few clouds in the flag, which is, of course, is at half staff for the El Paso shooting that is waving just a little bit. It is hot, but storms are lurking. Here's Joe with details.
That's right. This time yesterday, we had some clouds building, some isolated downpours around, so we didn't warm out of the 80s. By contrast, a little bit more sunshine today, little more heat, 92 degrees. A lot of you will be getting off over the next hour or so, so it's going to be a hot one as you start your evening from Santa Fe, Rio Rancho, on into the Albuquerque area. Now, thunderstorm-wise, you see one forming right over the Manzanos, and when they form, they'll kind of sink in a southerly direction. But if you get any showers and thunderstorms, it's really going to be isolated here, more organized, certainly around the Ute Park burn scar, where it looks like this area picked up a quarter to a half inch of rain, and one of the more vulnerable regions would be the Sawmill Creek, or the Sawmill Canyon area, which could see some flash flooding. So anyway, stay away from the streams, the creeks, the arroyos. Don't cross the flooded roads. You get the idea. Going down into the southwestern part of the state, just to the southeast of Baird and Silver City, storms were parked. So right around Dyer, you see a flood advisory in effect until 6 o'clock. So stay clear of the streams, creeks, and arroyos there as well.
Next on 7 in New Mexico University, researching hurricanes, what they're going to look into that could help predict storms in the future. Plus,
President Trump denounces hatred and racism as critics point to his own tweets and comments. I'm Aixa Diaz in Washington with a debate over the president's rhetoric.
Coming up all new tonight at 6, changing gun laws returns as a big topic of conversation on Capitol Hill. Target 7 looks at our congressional leaders' track record. And now on check on Traffic Watch 7, here are your drive times. Actually, let's go straight to Kiki Garcia. Hey, Kiki.
Good afternoon. All right, we still have a crash out there, Bridge and 4th. We also have a stalled vehicle on the off-ramp eastbound 40 at Eubank. Things are picking up if you're headed to the west side on Paseo. For News Radio 94.5 FM, I'm Kiki Garcia for Traffic Watch 7.
Now we'll look at your drive times. Central between Tingley and Unser, 7 minutes. Bridge between I-25 and Coors, 24 minutes. And 14 minutes for Rio Bravo between I-25 and Coors.